Hey fellows, I'm reiew. So it's been a couple of weeks since Reload came out, so I apologize for being a slow monkey and not being able to totally review this game. Just wanted to make a mini halfway through retrospective on it, since I believe I've gotten a good chunk of what the game wanted to give. And as to why I can't just wait until I fully finish the game and then make the review, well, the content. So expect spoilers up until October in the game. Persona 3 Reload, a game that came out with surely nobody expecting it. But yeah, I was pretty hyped for this game when it was announced, and I'm sure a lot of other people were as well. So with this whole video coming from a Persona 5 Roller player, which is the only Persona game I've played, I can't really make many comparisons to any other Persona games or the Persona 5 in general, since it's been a while after not playing that. I'll try to just talk about Reload alone, but if I make comparisons, then oh well. So let's finally get to it. How is Reload so far? Well, it certainly is what I expected it to be. Persona game is that dungeon crawling and social simulator we all know and love, and that's been transported here pretty nicely. But there is one thing I have to say. Time management feels so much harder in Reload rather than Royal. I don't exactly know why, but it's probably because I didn't do as much dungeon crawling or grinding in Royal. The only reason I'm grinding in Reload a lot is because I'm on Merciless difficulty, and that level's boss was the biggest piece of shit, and I've forever been mentally scarred due to my experience with it. But anyway, Reload has been pretty entertaining on the combat and social aspects of it all. I'll describe my experiences with the game's combat first and foremost, since that's one of the most important parts to me. So starting off, it's a turn-based RPG with unique mechanics that have been throughout the many Persona games. You still have the one more system, which I believe originated from the original P3, and a pretty new system that was introduced in P5, shifting, or baton passes. I still like to call it baton passes, but whatever. But I do gotta say that adding the system to Reload was a pretty good choice, and a whole game changer. You could chain elemental weakness combos together with your party, which then lead to an all-out attack, and it feels pretty satisfying. It honestly feels great to be rewarded for using brain a teeny bit. So far, the only original gameplay mechanic from Reload that I've been introduced to is theurgy, which is like an ultimate type of thing. Each character builds it up differently. For example, Tagaba heals and Sonata buffs. Most theurgies are for damage, but some exceptions are like healing and knocking enemies down. This system feels pretty good, along with the added bonus of keeping a gauge after battle. So where do all the fights take place? In one singular area. Tartarus. When I first heard about the party only fighting in one particular place, I was a bit skeptical at first until I played the game. It honestly isn't too bad at all. It's just a huge dungeon crawling tower with luckily changing environments so you don't get bored of the same one. So other than just fighting shadows in Tartarus, you could encounter chests and these monad doors, which are basically just a mini boss. So I'm pretty glad there's things like these just to pick up the grind of fighting the same basic and boring shadows over and over again. So upon playing the game, I realized Tartarus really wasn't the only place. You gotta defeat a big boy shadow, and they're all very different. You got one boss that splits into two, while another one just spams fucking chum on all your teammates and it hits bullshit criticals. So yeah, I do appreciate the spread diversity of bosses. So now my gripes with the combat. It's not much, but since this game's a turn-based, you're guaranteed to have some total bullshit enemies. So yeah, there's quite a few. So basically, Reload's combat is all the same as other Persona games, but it's still always pretty addicting and satisfying. So onto the other category, the actual story. Is it the best? Is it better than Persona 5? Hell, even Persona 2. Well, this section's gonna be horribly judged since I'm halfway through the game, but I can say one thing, it's pretty entertaining and engaging. Although there is one little gripe I have. Our blue-haired protagonist isn't really involved in much of the stuff that goes on outside of the Dark Hour. I guess an example would be the Chidori arc. We just get perspectives of the party talking to Chidori and no actual confrontation with her, but I guess it also makes sense since we barely have any relations to her anyway. Now, I may or may have not been paying a lot of attention, but it's usually the other Cease members having dialogue when out in the open world and getting involved in the extracurricular activities that relate back to the Dark Hour. But hey, that's just me, so if I'm wrong, do tell me in the comments below. But you know, except when he is on screen, he's one goofy little fellow. Out of all the protagonists in the Persona series, I feel like I enjoy Makoto the most just because of his dialogue options alone. But moving along from the protagonists, I'll really tell you what makes a Persona game a Persona game. The cast of the characters that are alongside the protagonists. And luckily, this game is a very memorable and fun one. They all just fit perfectly with each other in dialogue and bickering back and forth and other interactions. Tapes in the recording room add so much personality to the characters as well. And plus a dog and a robot fight alongside you, so you know. So besides the story and gameplay, there is one thing I find really intriguing about Persona. The many different themes each game has. Persona 5 is about fighting against the corrupted government, and as to what I've gathered so far, Persona 3 seems to be heavily revolved around death. I don't exactly know how the game tackles death in a certain way yet, but it for sure does. I mean, the main way to summon a Persona is literally shooting yourself in the head, but other than that, there's other reasons like most of the cast losing their family members and griping with that, the coffins in the dark hour, and from what I've heard, spoilers, but characters actually die. So I guess the theme is really about facing death and maybe sacrifices. I mean, this game does have a darker tone compared to the only other Persona game I've played before, Persona 5. The differences aren't exactly night and day, but the contrasts definitely do shine a bit. It's also not that edgy, surprisingly, if you compare it to the original, that is, because I've seen some stuff about it. Reload handles the theme it wants to show constantly, and also isn't afraid to dwell on the darker moments as well. All in all, Persona 3 Reload has been a thoroughly enjoyable experience so far, and I can't wait to see more of what the game has to offer. I haven't really had many bugs or problems with the game, so that's an added bonus. I just hope this game doesn't have any sort of boring part or infuriating part, since I do enjoy the flow of the game so far. So with that being said, that's all I have to say about Reload, so see ya fellows.